in the continuing saga of Hillsong Church, we now shift our focus over to Hillsong Worship and Hillsong United. So they were scheduled to go out on tour with Casting Crowns, and according to the Christian Post, Hillsong Worship has asked to be withdrawn from the upcoming tour with We the Kingdom. They posted through their Facebook. The reason: the band members need to take a break because they're, quote, an extension of and expression of Hillsong Church, a collective of our local church worship teams. Okay, so here's the deal. So let's talk about what really happened, okay? In my opinion, right? I don't have any proof, but we're 2 weeks out from the beginning of the tour. So I think what everybody did is said, let's wait and see. Let's see what the real fallout from this is. Meaning, let's see how this Hillsong Church story affects ticket sales, affects our ability to book tour dates, things that affect the ability of all the other tour participants to make money, right? And when it became clear that the Hillsong scandal was affecting this Casting Crowns tour, it wasn't that Hillsong asked to be released from the obligation of going tour. I'm fairly certain that Hillsong was asked to drop off the tour so the rest of the tour could survive.
Well, I'd like to think that they weren't asked to drop off because, after all, it's, nothing at least yet has come out about, the Hillsong, Worship and Hillsong United groups, right? So it's like, I'd like to think that they're doing okay, but at the same time, if we take it at its word for it, it's still kind of I don't know, it's kind of a weird response. Like, it doesn't sit right with me.
Yeah, I think that discipleship happens whether you want it to or not. Leaders lead and followers follow, and followers do and say and act the way the leaders model for them, right? So when we see leaders that are doing shady things with money, when we see leaders that are sexually harassing the staff under them, when we see leaders who are having relations with people who aren't their spouses, I think it's unreasonable to think that those examples don't trickle down to mid-tier leaders and lower-tier leaders as well, right? And so I don't think it's unreasonable for then organizations outside of Hillsong's to look at the different offshoot ministries of Hillsong and just kind of go, yeah, this might be more trouble than it's worth. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. And, there's definitely, like a vibe, I've seen it in the past, where you have, something happens to some, Christian band that's on tour. And then, it may be like, scandalous to some people, but maybe not like a huge scandal, right? But then you see that band's, gets a whole bunch of tour dates canceled without even getting a chance to explain themselves.
Right. And I think, so I'm assuming the way the story's written, that it's actually the Casting Crowns organization that is managing this particular tour. And I think they might actually be displaying wisdom to Hillsong, saying, hey, we know that your heart is to go out there and minister and change the world. But before you do that, you got to get your own house in order, right? Once your own house is in order, you're in a much better place then to insert authority, to insert influence, and not before. So I think that's actually a wise move on the part of the other organizers.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, it does seem like a good idea, right? Because, there's also just, the aspect of solidarity, I mean, with just so many churches have left Hillsong right now, right? I mean, it's, I'm not laughing because it's funny. I'm laughing because it is tragic. And, it wouldn't be a bad idea for them to put the tour aside for a while and just, because they're part of that church. You have a lot of people in Hillsong that are trying to kind of figure out who Hillsong is now.
Exactly. And this also goes back to your point about radical transparency.
Mm-hmm.
What is so hard? What is so gosh dang hard about just saying, yeah, we were asked to step down? The situation with Hillsong Church and with Brian Houston and with all the other pastors resigning was bigger than we originally thought it was. And we were asked to step down. Like, why is there always this instinct to sweep things under the rug and try to minimize the bad PR, I guess, in absence of a better way to phrase it?
Yeah, I don't think there's a good answer for that because, the reflex, I think, for humans is to just cover up bad PR, right? And just to avoid, having some kind of scandal make you look bad. So you want to get rid of it. You want to kind of put it on the rug. In a situation like this where, and like you said earlier, like you're just kind of making a little bit of a logical leap here to suggest that they were kind of asked to leave the tour. And I've seen some things in life, just to kind of say, I don't think you're being unreasonable to think that that's what actually happened.
Right.
But, at the same time, it's the word I'm looking for is Charlie Foxtrot, I guess. It's just, yeah.
Yeah. So the other part that doesn't ring true to me is kind of this explanation they gave of that Hillsong United is an expression of Hillsong Church and a collective of our local worship team. Like they're trying to now say that that being a part of the local church and ministering locally in the midst of what's going on, it has now become a priority. And it's like, well, if ministering to the local church is the priority, then how have you built up this multi-million-dollar juggernaut worship empire that's built around not being part of the local church, but it's built around sales and touring the world and getting away from your local church in order to do what you do?
Yeah, if you're going to actually pay attention to things and point out the obvious flaws, then yeah, sure, it looks bad.
Yeah.
But, it's like there is definitely something that, rings hollow when we're talking about that situation. Hillsong Worship is a big thing. They throw these huge stadium shows, these arena shows or whatever you want to call it, right?
Yeah.
Lots of ticket sales. These are revenue generating events. Like it's been a truth for quite a long time now that, record sales generate very little money for performers.
Right.
It's labels that get the money from album sales, but it's touring that gets it for the performers. Now, in this case, I don't know if these, performers are making their money by touring like Aerosmith would, or if it's one of those, hey, all the money goes back to, the Hillsong, Central Church. And then it kind of gets, divvied out from there in some way.
Right.
To
the
ministry.
Shell game that we talked about. Yeah.
But it's like, this is, we have so many Christians saying, we should be in the world, not of the world, right? This is
right.
Christians operating exactly the way the world works. And that's not really great.
Yeah, absolutely. And then finally, they said, now's the time for us to humbly seek the Lord, to grieve in hope, and to heal in community together. And I'm kind of like, it seems like one of the things church leaders are consistently doing whenever bad things happen is try to move on as quickly as possible, right?
Mm-hmm.
To heal in community together. Like, I understand that the instinct, right? That you want to say something comforting and you want to say something that acknowledges the situation without being too negative. But part of the story, the compelling story of Christianity, is the times when God's people have to wander in the desert, are the times where you cry out for God and there's no response, right? With a time where you're on the cross and the only thing you can think about is, oh God, why have you forsaken me, right? And we as a people of Christ followers have forgotten how to be still and wait on God and be okay having to wallow in a situation that isn't just star-spangled awesome. And that offends me in the modern church era.
Yeah, and especially when you talk about, trying to maintain and manage image, right? So the more public a church is, the more quickly they tend to want to try to get things dealt with. But what's happened at Hillsong really requires a lot of lament, and Christians are, generally sold this kind of bill of goods that says, hey, if you feel bad, then you're not faithful enough. It's a very just radical fundy kind of a thing to say, right? It's
you're not doing it right. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, no, like, have you just missed out on like half the Old Testament? Like, seriously, it's like, there's so much lament in the Old Testament, and we need to be good at that. And, I'm really hoping that Hillsong as a church, what's left of it, that is, that these people are able to take the necessary time to lament all of this, and that they don't try to sweep it under the rug. They don't try to maintain their image just so that they can go back to, I'm not even sure what business as usual is going to be for them now, but whatever that means in this case.
Yeah. If I were able to speak directly to the Hillsong Worship people, the Hillsong United and the people in that part of the organization, I would actually want to encourage them and have them like lean into the fact that you are artists, right? Mm-hmm. That you feel things differently, that you see the world and you see reality in a different way than the part of the world that's non-artistic. And you should use that time, instead of trying to make lemonades out of lemon, you should actually spend some time artistically exploring the lemon, right? Exploring it in your poetry, in your songs, in your worship, in the way that you lead your congregation through the worship process. You don't just have to sing, I'm so happy because God is so good. You can sing, my heart is broken, and still acknowledge that God is exalted on the throne and righteous and holy all at the same time. And you, instead of having to fear it, you can lean into it. It would be my encouragement to them.
Yeah, I think you're getting it absolutely right. They have a wonderful opportunity in their position as worship leaders to really help, set a tone of hopefulness. And I think they'll do well. So we'll see what happens. Because we're not done getting bad news about Hillsong yet. So, hopefully this can be the start of something turning around for good.
Exactly. If anything, the Easter season teaches us that all things can be redeemed and all things can be resurrected. So here is hoping and praying that Hillsong, will be resurrected and made new and made beautiful and continue doing, God's work.
Amen.